Okay, I'm here at the 2023 Moonlake Gathering, and I ran into one of the guys that's kind of got a story to tell, and so he kind of wants to keep anonymous, and we'll find out, I guess, as soon as we hear his story, why he's wanting to be anonymous, or maybe it's not a top secret story, and that's why he's giving it. He just likes to be top secret. So with that, anonymous guy, man, let's hear your story.
Okay, Terry, one of the biggest things that I think is important is there's a lot of people that like to know about Spanish treasure signs, but they don't know how to interpret them or how to figure out what they're trying to say. And I think one of the biggest things too is the ability to keep people safe when they're out there in the field. I'm a big thing on keeping people safe and making sure you have the right equipment to make a search of a certain area or where you're ever going to go. And one of the things too is you have to remember is that people always want to see something, but they don't know what they're looking at when they see it. There's a lot of treasure signs here in both Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and of course Colorado. A lot of people don't see things when they're driving or even when they're walking. And I've had to teach a lot of people. I have 2 other people that I've been teaching how to find Spanish treasure signs. And one of the biggest things that they always tell me is, wow, I don't look at mountains the same way anymore. And so one of the big things too is trying to interpret what you're seeing. And interpreting what you're seeing, as in a good example, are rock formations or rock monuments. And big rock monuments, say like ones where I live, the Spanish had always used the terminology that you probably heard it out of the Bible or out of some church teachings about pillars of stone. Well, pillars of stone, there's a lot of pillars of stone. A good example of pillar of stone is a very famous rock monument, and that's Victorio Peak. A Victorio Peak is a hand of God site. A hand of God site is every time you see a rock outcrop with a thumb on it, like Victorio Peak, you have to pay attention to those, because those are places where there are probably depositories of hidden wealth. Hidden wealth can be anything from church treasure to arms and armament to maybe even graves of people. So once again, hand of God. Franklin Mountain, right outside of El Paso, where there's supposed to be a big treasure, they have a hand of God site. Weaver's Needle in Arizona, the Superstition Mountains, it's a hand of God site. St. Augustine Mountain in New Mexico is a hand of God site. The Chisos Mountains down near Big Bend is a hand of God site. There are several hand of God sites. Guadalupe National Park, hand of God site. Every single one of these places has a thumb.
So I got to ask you, so you're not saying that they carved these big sites, you're just saying that they found these sites like that, and because they stick out, because they meant something to them, they deposited things there? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that they probably built them because the Spanish at the time period, they had the use of gunpowder, and they could change mountains or hillsides and make a certain point on the rock feature to show what that means, to show that they could see something from far away. And so that's why I call them hand of God site. Once again, where Franklin Mountain is, it's a hand of God site. The Spanish, when they were chased out by the Indians in, what is it, it was either 1680, I think it was 1680 or 1780 or something like that. I forget now. But one of the things that they did chase the Padres down is down to Paso del Norte, which is El Paso. But they said Onate and all the other Spanish priests and everything that were able to get away and were killed went down to Franklin Mountain and buried a large treasure. And once again, that's a hand of God site. You got to remember that. So another sign in Spanish treasure sign terminology is this means everybody thinks it's okay, but it's not. This is actually is excellent or perfect. So every time you see a hole or a Hoyo with this terminology, that means it's a place you really want to look for. You want to look at. You want to be able to see it from far away. You can see it from 20 miles away, and that's what they wanted. They wanted to be able to see that. So every place that has a Hoyo, and Franklin Mountain has a Hoyo, the Kabbalah Mountain has a Hoyo. There's one in Arches National Park in Utah here. There's some in Colorado. There's some in Nevada. There's some in Arizona. I've seen them all. A lot of people think about treasure in a whole different way. A lot of people have been stumped or stupefied by something that we all inherently have, and it's called common sense, but we forgot how to use it. And by not using common sense, all these Spanish, all the outlaws, everybody like Jesse James, they didn't have computers, they didn't have celestial navigators with them. They used common sense. The priests that were with the Spanish, a lot of them were cartographers, surveyors, celestial navigators, but not all of them knew everything. They also had sculptors, everything. So when they put things in the ground, and I recall this one video that you did earlier about the monument that's still in the ground in northern New Mexico, and the other one that's inside the St. James Hotel in Cimarron, New Mexico. They're not Knights Templar. They're more likely Jesuit, because Father Kino was a Jesuit, and he had a sign in the church at San Xavier del Bac in Tucson that has a fertilis, and the fertilis that's inside the church there, it dates back to Knights Templar, the Jesuits. More than likely, the thing that's in northern Arizona or northern New Mexico is Jesuit. It's not Knights Templar. They had similar teachings through the church, about hiding things, finding things, putting things in the ground. And one of the big things too is, hate to keep on using that same term, but they hid a lot of precious items. I have found photographs of rocked up walls. I know of 3 rocked up walls in particular. I know that there's 2 in Colorado. I know that there's one here in Utah. And if you look at them, you can see that they are man-made, rocked up cave entrances. And if you see something like that, you're going to have to find out who owns the property, whether it be the state, the federal government, or private ownership. Just don't assume that you can go on somebody's property and hunt, because of the ramifications and the legal ramifications that you probably have to deal with. So a lot of people, like I said before, they're interested in finding different kinds of treasures. I've been to several states. I went to Texas. That's a nice state to go to if you want to go find stuff. There's a lot of treasures associated with treasure in Texas. One of the biggest enigma is the Spider Rock treasure. And I've tried to get with a person in Texas who knows a lot about that. And I'd like to invite you, Terry, to go and see this. And it's commonly referred to as the Spider Rock treasure, or the Spider Rock. I have deciphered the map, the rock map. I know where the location is. Another location that's of interest, a lot of people have talked about it. In fact, there's almost a 2-hour video that Terry made. It's called the Lou Treasure Map. In a small book that Carl von Mueller put out called Treasure of the Valley of Secrets, there is an actual map to the Lou in that book, but you have to know what to look for. I know where everything on the Lou map is. And thanks to Terry and Randy Bradford, I figured that out in 2 weeks. But it took me 5 years to complete it. And if you use another author's name by the name of Charles Kenworthy, in order to figure out what the IAM key means is you have to read it backwards. And you have to buy Kenworthy's book on the Lost Dutchman mine to figure it out. And I know where it is.
So I got to back you up and I got to ask you, you know where it is. Are you going to go after it? Have you gone after it? Have you seen it? Are you going to go after it? What's there? I mean, until you actually see it, you just, it's theory, and you got to back it up with proof.
I'm going to back it up with proof, yes.
And you're going to let us know?
Terry, I've invited you to do that.
Cool.
And I've already did metal detector penetration. I have one of those whoop-de-doo OKM metal detectors that sees in the ground 64 feet. And every place that it shows red is a metallic object. And I've done the penetration into the ground with that. And I have come to the conclusion that there is something there. And once again, it's a rocked up entrance. But you have to go to, once again, you have to ask permission to go onto the property. So, there's a lot of people that have been looking for that specific treasure because a lot of them don't believe that it's there. I know it's there. Everything on that map, like I said, in Treasure of the Valley of Secrets, is correct. And if you know what to look for, once again, use common sense. I have found praying priests made out of rock. I found the Pope praying or pointing south. I found the Pope in Texas. I found the King of Spain carved in stone in Colorado. There's another one. The one thing that the Spanish really liked, they were really interested in things like the pyramid in Egypt and also the pyramids in like South America, the step pyramids. Well, do you know that there is a stepped pyramid in the shape of a Spanish king, or it looks like a Spanish king, down on the Virgin River?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really an interesting site. And if you look at it from up above on G-Earth, you'll see a stone with 5 petals, 5 stones around it. That's a Templar rose. And it's right near that pyramid down on the Virgin River. So if you really want to learn about Spanish treasure signs, sit down and talk to me. I mean, the people that are here, even though you don't know who I am, there's people here that do know me and that can talk to me, and I've been sharing what I find and what I see and what I've found with many, many people. But I want to put this out. If it wasn't for Terry Carter, I would have never found any of this stuff. Terry is like the oil that runs the engine. If you don't have any oil, you're going to burn up. Thank you, Terry.
Man, that's kind words, and thank you. And with that said, that's a wrap.